team, I hope you're all well. Today we're going to do the second half of September's recent reads, so wrapping up my September recent reads. I'm just going to tell you about the second half of the books, and then at the very end I'll do like a Bookoplathon wrap up so that you guys, it won't take me long, I'll just like run through what the prompts were and what books I picked because some of the books swapped out. So the second half of the month was better than the first. I read 14 books in the second half of the month. I only read 12 in the first. So I read 26 books overall in the month of September, which is pretty awesome, and I'm really happy about. Some of the books I swapped out I'm glad about, some of them I'm not. I'll explain a little bit more as we're going through. But yeah, let's get into it because otherwise this will take forever and I don't really want it to. The first book that I read for the second half of the month was Criers' War by Nina Varela. I think that's how you pronounce that. I buddy read this with Catherine and I actually loved this so much more than I thought I was going to. I don't know why, but I went into this with relatively low expectations. I wasn't expecting too much from it. I have seen this about a little bit on BookTube and Bookstagram and stuff, but not a great deal. I haven't heard a lot said about it, and I know that the second one is coming out in this month in October, and I am actually hyped as hell for it. This I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved it, and there's definitely potential for the next one to be 5 out of 5 stars. I think this is going to be a duology, so I'm really excited for that. And I listened to this on audio while following along with the book, which was a really good experience as well. This is following 2 different girls, one of them being Lady Crier and the other one being Ayla. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Ayla. Lady Crier is a made girl, so she is not like a human girl. She's been made and produced, and Ayla is a human girl, and Ayla is intending to kill Lady Crier because Lady Crier's father essentially sort of runs the kingdom, if you like, and had her parents killed and her brother. So Ayla's plan is to try and get close to Lady Crier, close enough that she can kill her. The only problem is Lady Crier has fallen in love with Ayla. So yeah, sapphic romance. It's really good. I really enjoyed where this story went. The writing style was fantastic. It was really engaging and it really kept my attention, and I kept thinking about this book even after I finished it, so I'm still thinking about it now, to be honest. I'm really excited for Ironheart. The cover for it is gorgeous as well. I'll show a picture of it here. So I'm really looking forward to continuing on with the series, and I can't wait to pick the next one up. 4 out of 5 stars. It's very good indeed. Then I read A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting, which is the first in a series. I have since been told that if you're picking this series up, I would recommend reading these in order. You don't need to. They can be read as standalones, but I would recommend doing so. You'll see the other 2 books in the series, but I have been told since that it's great if you picked up the Pucked series first by Helena Hunting. I'll show a picture of the cover here. I am reading Pucked in October. I didn't know that beforehand, but I have been told since that it's better if you pick that series up first and then this one. Apparently a lot of the NHL players cross over in both series, which I had no idea about. So this is following NHL player RJ, aka Rook. I think that's his name. Yeah, Rook. And he's an NHL captain for the team that he's currently playing for. And he, every single year, he goes away with his brother and usually his dad, but his dad previously, like recently passed away, to Alaska to go fishing. They've got a cabin up there and they go fishing for a few weeks, and while he's got a break from playing hockey, and they just go fishing. And on his way to go to Alaska, his brother can't make it this year. His sister-in-law is pregnant and she's got gestational diabetes, so his brother wants to stay behind and keep an eye on her, and he decides to go alone. He needs the break anyway, and he decides to go alone, and on his way ends up meeting our main female character, who is called Lainey, who is just so kooky. She cracks me up. She's just, I just find her really funny. Very clever girl. She's on like a 3rd PhD or masters or whatever it is, think PhD, and she's going to Alaska to go and look at some animals. That sounds so dumb when I say it like that, but she's going to sort of, you know, watch the animals and do her thesis and things like that. So she's on her way to go there. She's never been on a plane before. She ends up falling accidentally into RJ's lap on the plane, but she doesn't recognize him, and he loves that. And then he comes across her again on a little shitty plane that then takes them from the main airport to like Alaska, the place in Alaska where they're going to. And then he comes across her again, and the meet cute just seems to continue like this. They end up spending like 6 weeks together or 8 weeks together, and then he has to leave sort of very abruptly one morning, and he forgets to leave his number, and they end up losing contact for like 18 months. And the first chapter of this starts off with RJ at a party of one of the lads who's on his team, his kid's birthday party. So they go as like the NHL team sort of deemed like an entire family, so they all go together with some other kids and stuff, and they go to an aquarium. Now Lainey's working in the aquarium, and this is 18 months after the events of what I've just told you happened. So they end up bumping into each other at the aquarium, and then that happens in the first chapter, and then we end up jumping like 18 months in the past, where it tells you, explains to you what happened, and then we jump back forward again to current day. So it's very cleverly done. I loved how this went. I loved where the story went. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good storyline, and I enjoyed Helen Hunting's writing. I've read one other book from her previous to picking this up, and that was Meet Cute, and I really loved it. It was such a good book. But yeah, really enjoyed this. Very fast paced, and I loved the hockey side of things as well. Really enjoyed that, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was very good. Then I reread Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. I was going to say Suzanne Collins, and that's not right, is it? This is a graphic novel, and it's really cute. We are following Nova, who is a witch, and we're also following Tam, who is a werewolf, and I just really enjoyed this. These two have had like a romance previously, but Tam's family sort of moved away from the town that they lived in, and they decided to come back because of something that's going on in the woods surrounding the town, and they want to sort of investigate what's going on. So then they end up building a relationship again with Nova, and these two are trying to figure out what's going on in the woods and try and defeat whatever it is with the help of Nova's aunts as well. Who are adorable. I just love this. The illustrations are gorgeous, and I had a great time with it. This is a reread for me, and I just think it's beautiful. Like, the illustrations are gorgeous, and it's so colourful, and I just had such a good time with it. Gave this 5 out of 5 stars for the second time, so highly recommend picking this one up if you can do. Then I read A Favour for a Favour by Helen Hunting, which is the second in the series of A Lie for a Lie, and this is following one of the other lads in the now new team of Seattle's NHL team. That was difficult. Who is called Bishop, and he was a dick. I hated him, but Rook's sister ends up moving into, so this is sort of related in the sense that Rook's sister is involved. So we follow Stevie and also Bishop. Bishop is one of the lads on the team who Rook has a problem with. These two have like a mutual problem. They both want to be the cock of the team, and obviously Rook has come in as the captain, and Bishop isn't happy about it. Rook doesn't live in the accommodation that's sort of given to the team because he lives with his wife and family in their own home elsewhere, so his accommodation is left open, but he's still got the accommodation. So when something happens with Stevie and her boyfriend, she moves into the accommodation, with Bishop living across the way, thinking that Stevie is Rook's mistress. So he has like a massive problem with Stevie because he doesn't think it's right that Stevie is living in Rook's apartment when Rook's got a wife and kids and stuff, and all of this lot. So it was really good. I really enjoyed this. Obviously it was enemies to lovers, and I just really enjoyed that. It was such a good dynamic, and I really enjoyed Bishop and Stevie as characters as well. And yeah, it was just a great time. I highly recommend picking this one up as well. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars as well. It was a really good time. Then I finally finished Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare, which is the 3rd and final book in the Infernal Devices series. Can't tell you too much about what happens in this one because obviously it's the 3rd and final book in a series, but this is following Tess, Jem and Will and their journey There is a love triangle in this series in which I am not mad about it by any means. I think it's very well done. I don't usually like love triangles. If you've been here for a while, you will know that. If there is an established relationship, I hate when they throw a love triangle in just to cause chaos, but the person ends up with the person they were with in the beginning anyway. What's the point? It's a waste of time. But then I don't want them to break up a relationship, so don't do the love triangle. You know, this one I wasn't mad about because Tess met Will and Jem at the same time, and the love triangle just kind of festered from there. Festered, like it's some kind of disease. It just kind of went from there, and I wasn't mad about it because I wasn't swayed either way. But either way it went, I was heartbroken. So this book, this entire series just kind of, yeah, it didn't break me as much as I thought it was going to, but I enjoyed it nonetheless, and I had a good time with it, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I gave the first 2 5, so it was a good time and I enjoyed it. Then I read Potkin and Stubbs by Sophie Green, which was the middle grade monthly pick for the month of September, and I had a great time with this. This is following Lil Potkin and also Ned Stubbs, and these two are just adorable. I love them so much. Lil Potkin is just so confident in what she wants. She really wants to be a reporter for a newspaper in town that just takes no prisoners essentially, and will report exactly what they need to report, whereas the main paper in town, so the paper she wants to work for is the Claxton, the main paper in town is the Herald, but it only reports what the mayor wants it to report, so it's not political at all, and it's not, you know, it's only reporting one side of things. Lil's mum works for the mayor, but there are some odd things going on, and then she's looking for a big break that will help her get a job at the Claxon, and it looks like the big break might be sitting right in front of her in the vision of Nedley Stubbs. I don't know what to say. I loved this. I thought it was fantastic. I'm so excited to continue the series. This was a great choice from Gav and Jade, and I just really enjoyed it so much. If you want to know more about the middle grade monthly book club, I will leave a link to it in the description down below, but this was a great pick and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. Then I finished a book that I was already halfway through, which was Skullduggery Playing with Fire by Derek Landy. This is the second in the Skullduggery series, and I really enjoy this series. So this series starts off with the first one following a young girl called Stephanie, and her uncle dies, passes away, and leaves her his mansion. Now her family aren't impressed by this at all. They all thought that they were going to get the mansion, but he's left it to her, and she ends up finding some weird goings on within the mansion, and then this guy comes round who is just like a skull called Skullduggery, and he's like an investigator, if you like, and he enlists the help of Stephanie to try and figure out what happened to her uncle. That's what happens in the first book, and then the second book just carries on from there. She ends up becoming Skullduggery's like sidekick from this point on, and the entire series will just continue to follow Stephanie and Skullduggery on missions, I assume. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's really nice to sort of see my own name in a book as well. It's rare that happens, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it and highly recommend picking this up. Another middle grade series that's very, very good. Then I read A Strange Hymn by Laura Thalassa, which is the second in the Bargainer series, and I loved this. I gave the first one, which was Rhapsodic, 4 stars. This is following a girl called Callie. I say a girl, she's a woman. We follow her in 2 different timelines in the first book to sort of explain how she got to where she did. So Callie is a siren, and we follow like 23-year-old Callie, and then we follow like 16-year-old Callie. So 16-year-old Callie has done a thing that she wants to disappear, and she enlists the help of the Bargainer, who is a fey king who can make things happen, but you then owe them a favour. So he helps her out. He manages to get her to like this special school where special beings can sort of, because they live in a mundane world, this is like a urban fantasy, so he gets her enlisted in this school, and she goes to this school on the Isle of Man or the Isle of Wight, one of the isles, and she goes to this school, and then she wants him, he doesn't make this an actual deal because he feels bad for her for what's happened and stuff, so he does this one for free, this favour for free, but then she ends up calling him back. She's really, really lonely at school. She thought she was going to make friends and she doesn't. She ends up calling him back. She just wants him to hang out, and inevitably we then jump 7 years later, and she's got like 300 of these beads on her arm, that each one consists of a favour that she owes the bargainer. She's not seen him in she hasn't seen him in 7 years, and all of a sudden he just turns up and starts asking for favours. So she wants to get to the bottom of what's going on. I can't really tell you what happens in the second one because it continues straight on from the first one, and a lot happens at the end of Rhapsodic that then sort of transpires in, that then sort of continues on in A Strange Hymn. But I fucking loved it. I thought it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I gave Rhapsodic 4. So the series is getting better. Thanks to Becca for initially mentioning this one, and then to Bobby for pushing me to read it, because Becca's read the first 2, which are Rhapsodic and A Strange Hymn, and then Bobby's just gone through and read the whole fucking series. So I'm really excited to continue. There is a book 2.5 and a book 3, I think. Can't remember if there's a book 4, but I'm really excited to continue the series. I'm having a great time with it. It's so good. Then I read My Favourite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is one of my favourite. I've read 2 Christina Lauren books in the month of September, and they've both been like my favourite Christina Lauren books to date. So I really enjoyed this. We're following a girl called Millie who has 4 platonic guy best friends. These lot are all in like the late 20s, early 30s. Reed, Alex, Chris and Ed. I don't know why I always remember their names, but not hers. Millie's really hard to remember apparently. And basically these lot hang out all the time. They're like professors at the local uni, and they just hang out all the time, and that's all they do. They just spend all the time together, and they have this upcoming dinner at uni, which is like to celebrate something, like an upcoming dinner that they do at unis, and Barack Obama's going to be there to give a speech. So they're all like, oh my god, we need to take this really seriously, we should be taking dates, blah blah blah. Reed Bagsy's Millie, so they sort of do a Bagsy, okay, we'll go together, and the guys kick off a little bit about it, but they're like, okay, fine, whatever. And then Reed and Millie end up sleeping together in their like first ever like half night stand. So their relationship gets complicated very quickly, and they try and pretend like it didn't happen, but it's really difficult for them to just try and ignore it. There's obviously an attraction between the both of them. As a group, they then collectively decide to join. The rest of the other guys don't know that this has happened, but as a group they collectively decide to join dating sites, and they decide that they're going to go on dating sites to find dates. Reed and Millie agreed that they probably should now not go to this event together, and they agree to join the dating sites as well with the guys. So the story just kind of goes from there. Millie makes a profile, the boys say it's shit, so she then makes a secondary profile, which she inadvertently ends up chatting with Reed too. She knows it's Reed. Reed doesn't know it's her. She thought he was going to pick up on it in the first message because she left like breadcrumbs of things that Millie would say, and it just sort of goes from there. And there are several times in this where I'm like, Millie, you're a fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing? What are you getting out of this? Where do you think this is gonna go? And it just kind of, you know, snowballs from there. It's just, it gets really, really bad. And there are parts in this where I find that Millie's stupid, she's an idiot, and I'm really frustrated with her. But there are other parts where I just think to myself, do you know what? My heart goes out to her, because honestly, I can see how she thought this was a good idea to begin with, but then she never went into it thinking of deceiving Reed, but it just kind of ended up that way. And I just related to this. I related to this on so many levels. Being 30 years old myself and having been on dating sites previously, I know what it's like to get so fucking frustrated with the shit messages you get sent, with the dick pics you get sent, with the guys just wanting one thing and it getting really fucking frustrating, that you want to make a profile where you don't, the picture, for example, was just like a side shot in black and white, and it was like lots of shadows. You couldn't tell it was her, but her profile just kind of opened her up a little bit more, and she felt like she could be a lot more open and honest and things like that, because she wasn't actually Millie, she was somebody else, if you know what I mean, but she was being Millie. does that make any sense? And I could just kind of relate to it on so many different levels. My heart really went out to her, and I just really enjoyed where this went. I loved Millie and Reed's relationship and where this all went. I loved the friendship group as well. The guys were amazing and just fantastic. I would really love to see a story for each of the guys as well, like for a story for Ed, a story for Chris, and a story for Alex. I would just really love to see that. I don't think we're going to get that, but it would be really nice to do so. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. Then I read From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I loved this book. It was amazing. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was fantastic. I cannot wait to pick up Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I think that's what it's called. And the third book has just been announced as well. The title's just been announced that it's coming out in April. So that's exciting, but I'm bummed that we have to wait till April. She like rushed Kingdom of Flesh and Fire out because this had such a good it was received so well. She ended up rushing the second book out, so obviously we have to wait a little bit for the third one now, but at least we don't have to wait a year. I loved this. Could I synopsize this very well? I don't know. Let's give it a try. Okay, so within this book there are different types of paranormal / supernatural creatures. So you've got, I'm not going to explain what they are because one of the most amazing things about this book is that about 400 pages in you actually finally figure out what each of the creatures are, and it's explained so very well that I'm not going to spoil that for you. But there's the Ascended, the Descended, the Crave, the Wolven. Is that it? I think that's it. I can't remember if that's it or not. But essentially, we're following Poppy, who's a young girl who is deemed, she's a maiden, and essentially she is like pure. She's got this like power where she can, I don't know if she can, yeah, I think she can heal people, but more so she can take their pain away if they are in pain. She can sense their pain, but her power seems to be getting stronger and she's not sure why. And she will become an Ascended. Now, she doesn't really know what happens to the Ascended, but she's been brought up to believe that this is a good thing and it's going to be amazing and all of this lot. So she is looking forward, well, she kind of is looking forward to it, but at the same time she doesn't like having this pressure on her. She can't do the things that she wants to do. She wants to be a bit of a rebel. She goes out at night and things like that, and she ends up going to this club one night and she's playing cards with some of the guards. They obviously don't know who she is. She's got a mask on, and she's playing cards with some of the guards, and then she ends up, her main guard, who kind of looks after her, is a bit like her dad a little bit, he looks after her a lot, he comes into the club. She doesn't know that he joined, like he frequents this club, and he ends up coming into the club, and she manages to find her way into, well, with the help of somebody that works in the club who recognises her, find her way into one of the rooms that it turns out is occupied by one of the guards for somewhere else, called Hawk, who ends up making a move on her thinking she's somebody else, and she allows him to because she wants that, despite the fact that she actually needs to stay a virgin in order to ascend, and she wants it to go further. He ends up getting interrupted, but he realises very quickly he's not who she thought she was, but who he thought she was, but he's not sure who she is. And then things just kind of go from there, and I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed Hawk and Poppy's relationship. I enjoyed Poppy's relationship with the guard who looks after her, whose name I now cannot remember, which is terrible. Victor. I loved her relationship with Victor, and I love Tawny, who is like her handmaiden, who is just, I freaking love books that have sassy side characters. So for example, I know I mentioned A Strange Hymn before. Temper is the sassy side character in that book, and I fucking love her. I just think she's fantastic, and in this book it's Tawny, and I just think that she's so funny. I just love her. You know, when you've got that person in your life who's supposed to be like, oh my god, you shouldn't be doing that stupid shit, what are you talking about, you did that, what do you mean? Instead Tawny's like, oh shit girl, yes, and she's like encouraging her, and I'm so here for it. I just think it's so funny. I just love a sassy side character. So yes, Tawny's one of my favourite characters in this book, so I'm so excited to pick up Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I cannot wait. So yeah, I gave this 4.5 stars. It was so good. Highly recommend picking it up. Then I read A Secret for a Secret by Helen Hunting III in the series. I think this is I mean, so far it's the final in the series. This only came out this year, but I don't know if it's going to be the final in the series. I'd really like a book from I really like a book from Jake's point of view, who is the team captain of the Seattle NHL team. I think it would be so funny. So this one is following Queenie, who is Jake's daughter. So she's like mid-20s or something, and he had her really young, and her mum fucked off basically, and he gave up his entire career so that he could bring up Queenie as a single dad. He's now the manager of the Seattle team that Rook and Bishop both play for, and in this one we're following Kingston, who is another one of the guys, but he's like such a straight and narrow guy. He drives at 10 to 2, he drives at the speed limit, he's always checking his mirrors, he drinks milk not beer, and he's just such a straight and narrow guy. I just love him. I think he's fantastic. I think he's such a good character. And one night he's in a bar, he's just found out some information that is pretty fucked up basically, and he's in a bar trying to get drunk, and Queenie comes and sits down beside him, asks if she can get him a drink, and they end up drinking and sleeping together. They have a one night stand. In the morning when he gets up, she's left a note without her number, and then 6 weeks passes and they are back at work. Kingston is back for the team and the season's starting again, so pre-season training has to start, and they are going to a meeting, and who is at the meeting but Jake's new PA, Queenie. And the first rule that Jake had for Queenie was, whatever you do, don't get involved with any of the lads on the team, please. So obviously these two shit themselves because they know each other, they've slept together, and they've not seen each other for like the last 6 weeks, and a relationship ensues, and I just loved it. It was so good. I really enjoyed this one. Obviously I don't know how this relationship would go. You know how you've got like friends to enemies, or enemies to lovers, or friends to lovers, sorry, or enemies to lovers. I suppose you would say that they were friends to lovers, I suppose. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would really like, there is a lot of dark stuff underlying in some of these books as well. The first one, sorry I forgot to mention, but A Lie for a Lie, trigger warnings for mass shooting in that, so just be careful with that one, and also PTSD and severe anxiety, so just be careful with that one. But there is a thing that happens in this that I just did not see coming at all, and I think that it was dealt with very well. I just think it was really good. I really enjoyed it. There are dark themes running through these books in the background that, you know, typical, you only find out at the last minute. It's one of those things that the couple ends up nearly breaking up over and things like that, but I really enjoy those types of things. So yeah, really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Very good indeed. Then I read The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. My buddy read this with Pris and I really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. We're following a young girl called Emmanuelle whose mum died at birth and her dad died before then. And she lives like in this town where there is a pastor who runs the church. This is quite a religious book. Runs the church, and it's done in such a way that he has several wives and a ton of kids, because essentially his wives are baby making machines, and his latest wife is Emmanuelle's best friend Leah. Now he takes these girls to be his wives when they have gotten their period, essentially, and Emmanuelle hasn't come into her period. She's the same age as Leah. She's not had her period and she's wondering what's going on. She starts investigating. She starts having these like weird things where she's like attracted to the dark wood, and she ends up inadvertently causing a plague to run throughout the town, and she's not sure why this has happened, why she's managed to cause it, how she's managed to cause it, and it's her trying to figure out what's going on, but with the help of one of the pastor's sons, who's called Ezra. It's not even on that page, I don't know why that just came to me then. Ezra. And I really enjoyed the dynamic between Emmanuelle and Ezra. I really liked their relationship. I thought that Leah was a little bit naive, but also really enjoyed her character as well. The pastor was a complete bastard and I hated him. I really enjoyed this. I was really worried, to be honest, when I first went into this that I wasn't going to enjoy it so much because of the religious side of things. I don't tend to pick books up that are heavy on religion or politics because they don't necessarily interest me. I'm not ignorant to them by any means, but I'm not specifically interested in them, so I don't like to read about them. So yeah, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it because of that, but it wasn't too heavy, you know, and the way it was done, I was really sucked into this. I read like the first, was it like the first 100 pages pretty quickly, and I just flew through this book. It was really, really good and I really enjoyed it, and I do recommend picking this up for spooky season. So if this is on your TBR for October, good job. I hope you like it. It was very, very good indeed, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I would have liked to, I discussed this, both myself and Pris said this, but I would have liked a bit more conversation maybe about her parents, about her mum and dad, and getting to know them a bit more. I would have liked a bit more into that, but it is what it is. I enjoyed it for what it was. It was really good, so 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read an e-arc that I have, well actually it's already come out, but I got it on NetGalley, and it's called Tempted by Anna Ray. This was a novella. It's like 90 pages long or something, and it's a mafia romance, and I really enjoyed this. We're following Laura and Daniel. Daniel's father is one of the mafia mobs in town, and Daniel has wanted to make his own way in life, in life, and has set up a realty. Yeah, realty. Is that how you call it? Realty. A realty company called Marino Realty, because his last name is Marino, and it's doing amazing. He's like a billionaire. So he's the sort of sleazebag that sleeps with will sleep with 2 women at once on a one-night stand and shit like that. He's not down for a relationship. He was screwed over by his last ex, and then Laura comes into his life. He keeps sleeping with his PAs, so he keeps fucking up his relationships with his PAs, and Laura comes into his life for an interview one day and to become his new PA, and she ends up getting the job because he's like super interested in her, and the story just kind of goes from there. Daniel ends up going into becoming more involved in his dad's stuff. Now that his company's taking off, he gets more involved in his dad's stuff and the mob side of things, and the story just kind of goes from there. I would have loved for this to be like another 100 pages and just expand on it. I think it could have done with some more meat to its bones. I enjoyed the story for what it was, but it was obviously, because it's only 90 pages long, we jump in time a lot. So we go from like the first or second chapter, when she's got the job, we jump like a week, and then we jump another couple of weeks, and then we jump like 6 weeks, and it just kind of keeps jumping like that. And I get it because it's a novella, very short. In fact, it's more like a short story, but it just give it another couple hundred, like 100 pages or so, and just flesh it out a bit more. I gave it 3 stars. I just think it could have done with a bit more meat to its bones, really. And then the final book that I read in the month of September was Cody by Jared Cullen. I saw this on Brittany, the Bibliophiles, one of her vlogs recently, and it just looked gorgeous. And then I was discussing it with Claire from Books and Ink, and she ended up gifting it to me because she said that she's got it and she wanted to read it. I was like, oh my god, yeah, I saw it on Brittany's channel and I really want to read it. So she's ended up sending it to me, and I read it the day it turned up because I really wanted to pick it up. And this book is gorgeous. This is following a young girl whose name is Katia, and she's living with her mama. They're spending another summer in their cottage in Alaska when a chance accident leaves Katia trying to help this bear that she then names Cody. He's got his leg stuck under a tree, a fallen tree, and she's trying to help him out. So Mema and Mima and Katia try and help him out, and they end up trying to nurse him back to health. And then Katia and Mima end up getting called back to Seattle, where they're actually from, because something has happened with one of Katia's aunts, and they end up going back to Seattle and leaving Cody behind. And this is the story of Cody traveling to try and find Katia in Seattle, and it's just gorgeous. It's as simple as that, but I just loved it. And honestly, the illustrations in this are beautiful. Look at that. It's watercolors, which is I don't know if I actually own another graphic novel that is done in watercolours. This is just beautiful and I'm obsessed with it. Absolutely gorgeous. I could read this over and over and over and over again and never get bored. It's something that I could read to my nephew when he's a little bit older, because he will love the colours and illustrations and he'll love that there's a bear in it. And I just think it's beautiful and I'm going to keep it forever and ever and ever, amen. So thanks to Claire for sending me this one, and also thanks to Brittany for bringing it to my attention, because I never heard of it before. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was incredible. Okay, so let me go through quickly what each of the prompts were on Bookoplathon and then what happened to those prompts, whether I swapped them out or not. Quite a few of these were swapped. So the first prompt was a NetGalley arc, and for this I had Frostheart 2 on here. Unfortunately, I had a whole plan for like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the last week of September, but I came down with a really bad migraine on Monday afternoon and it wiped me out for Monday and Tuesday, and it just meant that I did not have the time to get through the last 3 books that I had on my TBR. So I had to swap these out, and Frostheart 2 was one of these. I'm devastated about it. I've like really beat myself up about it, and then Pris has beat me up for beating myself up about it, so she told me not to be so hard on myself. So I'm really gutted, but I swapped this out for Tempted because that was a NetGalley arc, so swapped a middle grade out for an adult smutty book, which, you know, makes sense. TBR game, I picked Maddie for this one, and for this I picked The City We Became, so I'm really glad I got the chance to read that one because I absolutely loved it. LGBTQ plus rep, I did have Once and Future Witches on here for this by Alex E. Harrow, and I ended up DNFing that about 10% in. I don't like the writing style, so I've DNF'd that book, and instead I read Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman, and I loved this. It was a great swap out. Next I had an adult, and for this I had A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting. I can't remember if this was swapped out for something else. I'm not sure. I don't think it was. I think this was originally on my TBR, but there we go. Then I had Own Voices book. So for this one I went for Cryer's War by Nina Varela, and I have just told you I really enjoyed this book. Then I had a book set in the present, so I had When Life Gives You Mangoes for this one, and similarly this was one of the books that I was going to read towards the end of the month and I just didn't get to because I was sick, so I ended up swapping this out for Dreaming Sun Volume 1, which is a manga, and I really enjoyed. Then I had highest rated on my Goodreads TBR, and that was Return to Raw by Jenny McLaughlin, and I loved it. So yeah, that was a good one, a good pick. Then I had TBR game, so I went for Jade with Potkin and Stubbs, which was on her September TBR because it's middle grade monthly pick, and it was a great pick. Then I had an adult book, and I went for If I Never Met You by Vahira McFarlane. This was originally on my TBR. Then I had Fire. Again, this was one of the books that I didn't get to because I was sick, and this was The Castle of Tangle Magic by Sophie Anderson. I'm really mad about it, and I ended up swapping this out for The Year of the Witching. This doesn't specifically have fire on it, but this is on fire, so I'm saying it counts because I read it and it didn't fit anywhere else. Then we had Friend Pick, which was The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, which was picked by Siobhan. However, I got partway through this and it was not engaging me at all. The first 50 pages did, but I've not fully DNF'd it, but I've temporarily DNF'd it for now. But I was finding that I was rushing myself through it and I wasn't enjoying it, and it was making me slumpy. So I've temporarily DNF'd it, and I asked Siobhan to pick a couple other books, well, from a couple other books for me, and she ended up picking A Secret for a Secret by Helen Hunting for me. So thanks, Siobhan, for picking this one. That was a real help. Then we had Dark Cover. So for this, originally I went for A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I've temporarily DNF'd that one. Similarly, it was making me slumpy. It was taking me too long to get through and it was making me slumpy. I then was going to read Addie LaRue for this one, and I'm really mad and sad about what's happened with this. I fucking love this book. I'm 45% through, but I'm struggling to read it on my Kindle. So as mentioned, I suffer with migraines and I can't read long books on my Kindle because it's too much screen time for me. It's too intense for me. So I can read like a 300 page book, maximum 350 fully max, but this is like a 560 page book, so I've gotten 45% through and I'm really struggling just with the format that it's in, so I'm having to wait until the book comes in now on the 6th of October, which is a shame, and I'm really gutted about it, but I can't force myself any longer to continue reading that book and go into bed with headaches, because it's not good for my health, mental and physical. So I ended up swapping that one out then for Cody by Jared Cullum, which was a good shout, to be fair, but I'm gutted about not picking Adila Rope and managing to get to it before it comes out and being able to review it on release day. I'm really gutted about it, to be honest. Then I had a book featuring disability, so I went for 6 of Crows by Lee Bardugo. The lighting today is shit because it's so overcast, so my apologies. Then where are we? Chance Card, which was Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. Then I had a book with fire on the cover. So for this one, oh, I originally had Wizards of Once, Never and Forever, and then ended up putting this down because it was an e-arc and I wanted to wait until the physical book came out because there were no illustrations on the e-arc, and it was really getting me down. I know that might be a little bit, what's the word? I know that might be a bit dramatic, but it was really getting me down. I listened to these books on audio, narrated by David Tennant, and they're fantastic and usually follow with the book, but the audio doesn't come out till next year, and then I had no illustrations either, and it was just really getting me down, so I really wanted to wait till the physical book came out. I do now have a copy of the book, but I swapped it out for Playing with Fire, Skullduggery Playing with Fire, which was the second in the Skullduggery series. Then we had Friend Pick, which was from Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which was picked by Laura. Thank you so much, Laura, for picking that one for me. Then I had a community shelf pick, which was A Memory in the Flame by Jesse Elliott and KJ Sutton, which I really enjoyed. And then following on with Jesse Elliott and KJ Sutton, I had TBR game, so I picked A Sacrifice in the Smoke off Becca's TBR game. Then we had poll pick, so for this one, I had The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and I got 50 or 60 pages in, and I am loving that book, but I really wanted to take my time with it, and I felt myself, I was getting towards the end of the month and I was wanting to rush through the rest of the books that I had as well, without, you know, but while enjoying them, and I found that I couldn't do that with The Bear and the Nightingale. So I then took to Bookoplathon's Discord channel and on the reading sprints, because at the time I was hosting reading sprints, and asked them to vote for a new book for me. So this was still a poll pick, and they picked My Favourite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren, which I ended up reading for the Buzzwordathon. The word was night, so I swapped out my only buzzword book, which was The Bear and the Nightingale, which is why I left it so late in the month to pick it up, for another one with the word night in it. So it was a good swap, but I'm excited to pick The Bear and the Nightingale up. I think I might save it for December possibly, or maybe November, but I'm really looking forward to continuing on with that book. Then I had a standalone, so I picked The Wicker King by Kay Ancram, which is my favourite book of the year so far. So Bookoplathon brought me my favourite book of the year, which is exciting. Then we had a sad book, which was Clockwork Princess. Wasn't as sad as I thought it was going to be, but I'm sad that the series is over. Then we had Friend Pick, which was Air of Fire, and this was picked by my friend Annie, and it got to over halfway through the month and I hadn't even picked that up. I hadn't even thought about picking it up, so I swapped this out and I ended up rolling for this because it was picked by a friend. I ended up doing a separate roll for it because Annie is now no longer available on Instagram. She's come off it and I have no contact with her. So I ended up swapping, I ended up rolling again for this, and I came up with an ebook or an audiobook. So I picked Strange Hymn by Laura Thalassa, which is the second in the Bargainer series, and I loved it. Then we had Lowest Rating, which was supposed to be Ask Me Anything, and again I re-rolled for this one because it's the lowest rated, so it's not like I can swap it out for something else easily. I just re-rolled because I wasn't really interested in picking this one up anymore. So I got a double, and I also got LGBTQ rep, so I picked up Mooncakes. And then for that next roll then I got a standalone, so I then picked up A Favour for a Favour by Helena Hunting. This is part of a series, but when you read the Goodreads thing, because they can be read as standalones, it does say that it's a standalone, so I read it as a standalone, and that's what I did. And then obviously I read the Wicked Deep and Zombierella as well, which was separate. So overall I read 24 books for Bookoplathon, and I had an amazing month. Thank you so much to Becca for hosting. Thank you for asking me to be a mod so that I could do reading sprints as well, and also for letting me do a Twitter and Discord takeover with die sprints on one of the weekends. I had an absolute blast. It was such a good month, and I got a lot of reading done, and I'm really happy with what I managed. So thank you so much for hosting. I really had a great time, and you did such a good job as well, Becca. You were amazing. It was such a good month, and I'm really excited to take part in Bookoplathon again. So yeah, I had a great month. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you got to the end, leave me a little ghosty in the comments if you don't want to leave anything else in the comments. Just like to see who gets to the end of my videos, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.